right, welcome back to One Bar and Lupigus Show. I am Lupigus, and as promised, I'm going to break down Rick Spielman's press conference he had today, talk about everything that's worth talking about, things that he mentioned. And as usual, Rick Spielman doesn't get into it too much, doesn't give out any clear black and white answers, but he did say some things I think we can infer some different things from. So very interesting press conference from the Vikings general manager. Before I get into it, be sure to subscribe. Be sure to drop the hashtag sauces when we do get to 2,500 subscribers. If that day ever comes, we will be giving out that beautiful, beautiful print of Minnesota Viking legend Jimmy Klein Saucer, the sauce himself. All right, so let's hop into Rick Spielman's press conference. First of all, he gave Mike Zimmer some warm fuzzies, gave him some props for putting together the staff he has this offseason. Said he promoted guys from within, brought in some solid outside coaching talent. So he was very excited about Mike Zimmer's new coaching staff. We'll see how that pans out and if Spielman backs them as the season goes on with its highs and lows figured into that. He also talked about the draft process. To me, this was one of the more interesting things from the entire press conference. He did stress how the Senior Bowl is very, very critical this year. He said it's the only time you're able to see these players practice. He mentioned the interview process was super critical here. They were able to interview 128 players. So does this mean the Vikings are going to be drafting players who were participated in the Senior Bowl? I mean, it's a logical conclusion to take, because if you're sitting there, you have two guys you like, one's based off film, one's based on getting to know them and talk to them at the Senior Bowl, see them up close and personal. You're probably going to go with the guy that you saw up close and personal. So to me, this might be the most Senior Bowl heavy Vikings draft that they've had in recent years, which is a little scary because their track record with the Senior Bowl isn't great. If you go back and look at some of the players that they took from that game. He did mention players who opted out. Again, this is still sticking with the Senior Bowl theme. He said, these players opted out. We're down there at the Senior Bowl, so it was a real first look they've gotten to see at these guys since their 19 films. So that was huge. So he definitely made a point to mention that to me, which is telling. So clearly the Senior Bowl is going to be one of the bigger measuring sticks when it comes to talent, where these prospects ultimately fall in this draft this year, bigger than it's ever been. And that's kind of something that me and One Bar thought and we talked about earlier this year. And now with Spielman's comments, it's kind of cemented the fact that Senior Bowl is going to be a huge basis from where these teams rank these players as the draft approaches. He also, another interesting thing, he mentioned these small schoolers who maybe didn't have a college season. He pointed those out specifically, and to me that just screamed Quinn Miners, the guy from Wisconsin Whitewater. So he didn't flat out say his name, but to me that's what I got. He likes Quinn Miners, and so do I. All right. He didn't, sticking on the draft theme, he did mention they do get to go to pro days this year. He said he'll be on the road next week. He did mention what I think they can have 3 guys go to these pro days from their scouting department, and he said who goes where depends on the school. Some players, some coaching staff, some of these guys on the front office have connections to these schools. They might be the ones to go to certain areas other than other members of the front office. He talked about unrestricted free agent meetings. He said significant players have already been cut. He mentioned there's going to be a very, very active market. The significant players having been already cut to me was a little bit interesting. To me, it spoke to defensive tackles. You talk about Kawan Short. You talk about Terrell Casey, 2 names that come to mind. To me, those are significant players who fill Vikings needs. So, that's where my mind went with that. Yours can go wherever you want. To me, that's kind of a position that stuck out. He talked about Kyle Rudolph getting released. He said, he just stated again how great he was for the organization, not just as a player, but as a guy outside it. Gave props to his wife, Jordan. He said the move hurt them too. It wasn't easy. It's never easy cutting a great Viking player, not only one who was so good on the field, but one who was so great off it as well. So he said it was not easy for anybody in the front office to make that move, but it was a move that had to be made. He called the Vikings cap situation a unique and great challenge. And to kind of piggyback on that, he said they just have to be more creative with how they manage it this year than other years. He wasn't really sure where that number was going to end up. That's still in flux at this point. But he talked about pushing salaries, bonuses, things into the future. So backloading deals, finding ways to make things work this year when they are up against it as far as the cap is concerned. Overall, he said he has the good ideas of the strengths of the draft and the strengths of free agency. So clearly the Vikings have a plan. I think they already know what positions they're going to target in free agency, what positions they're going to leave to the draft, which is good. It's still early March, and for them to clearly have an idea and a path is a good sign. He was asked about cutting more veterans. They already cut Kyle Rudolph, as we just talked about. Rick kind of sidestepped this one. He just said it's to be determined. But clearly there's going to be more Vikings who are going to be cut. Whether that is a big name like Riley Reef or Anthony Barr, that remains to be seen. But I think we're talking more like the Shamar Steffen types of players, little lower level guys who haven't quite lived up to their billing, who might not be back with the team. He was asked about if they gave any assurance to Kirk Cousins if he would be the quarterback next year. He said he already felt Mike Zimmer answer that very clearly. And then he stated about, it must have been 4 or 5 times in a span of 2 minutes that Kirk Cousins is our quarterback. Kirk Cousins is our quarterback. He kept saying it. He also said last year he thought he played the best he's ever played, and he looks forward to having Kirk Cousins under center for next year and the years after that. So I don't think Kirk Cousins is going anywhere. I know it's a press conference. Rick Spielman's going to say one thing, and he could turn around tomorrow, get a great trade offer, and deal Kirk Cousins. But to me, at this point, I do think he was genuine. I think Kirk Cousins is the Vikings quarterback, and the fact that he said it so much in such a short span of time just cements the idea to me that he will be back. He is the quarterback. So get used to it. Kirk Cousins is going to be around. One last thing I think we got to take from this press conference is he was asked about Daniel Hunter, his contract, his health. He said he's no way he's talking about his contract. He said he never does that. He never will. He did say that he loves where Hunter is at with his rehab. So he looks really great. He's excited to have him back in the fold. He was asked about Hunter, the speculation that came out last year about him wanting to be the highest paid defensive player or be traded. He said he's never been communicated to that by anyone in Daniel Hunter's camp. So that's pretty huge, saying that. Just the fact that Hunter hasn't made it public. And if he has, Spielman's not going to say that. So maybe we can't look into this too much. But clearly he thinks Hunter is going to be back with the team, and he's excited to have him back. So that's a good sign. I think you want to see him come back from the injury, and then you talk about restructuring his contract and extending him maybe after this year. But at this point, thank God he didn't flat out say, yeah, Hunter's going to hold out, because that would have been absolutely catastrophic for us Vikings fans. And I think all of our heads would collectively explode if that was the truth. So those are your talkers from the Rick Spielman press conference. Some interesting things there. Obviously, he's not going to say too much, but I think just if we're ranking these takeaways, I think the fact, number one, is Kirk Cousins. He over and over again said that he was going to be the quarterback. Interesting about how much I think emphasis was going to be put on the Senior Bowl this year. To me, that's another really interesting thing. And I don't think that's just a Vikings thing. I think that's what we're going to see league-wide. I think a lot of these players drafted early. And I mean, early, I'm talking first day. I'm talking first 2 days. And I think we're going to see a lot of players who participated in the Senior Bowl go off the board before those who didn't, because it's just such a unique year with players not playing, opting out. To have that one evaluation week where every coaching staff gets a look at these players, gets to talk to them, is going to be huge. So I do think Senior Bowl players will be coming off the board early. So to me, those are the two biggest takeaways from this. So yeah, that's it. Rick Spielman spoke his mind today. I think he was fairly straightforward. Again, he's not going to tip his hand one way or the other. But one thing Rick Spielman always does, and he's done this since day one, is he's always kept his skull in his hole.